Hello, YouTube. It's Joseph Warren here. And today I'm here with someone who has a very inspirational story, someone that I met at one of the events he was putting on, the American Warrior Festival. That's an event that he puts on to entertain our veterans. And I just always been very interested in his story. I saw him rocking on stage playing metal music, and I wanted to get to know more about how he was able to do that, how he was able to create a music festival and really use what he loves, his music, to help his fellow veterans. How's it going today, Dan?
Hey, Joe, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So great to have you. And I wanted to start with kind of an icebreaker. I haven't seen you in a while. Last time I think was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. What group did you hang out with in high school?
You know, I was one of those, I guess, kind of like a social chameleon, man. I definitely hung a lot with the athletes, being a wrestler, a football player myself. But I also would hang out with the metalheads, of course.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys, guys that would work on cars, and I mean, all kinds of groups. I really had a blended group of friends, and I kind of still am that way.
Awesome. And blended group of friends, that sounds good. Metalheads, when did you discover your love for metal? Like, how did that start where you were like getting into like metal music?
Well, I have two older sisters, and it was like a wrestling match between the TV on if I would get my Yankee games on or if they would watch MTV. And they liked a lot of the stuff that was on MTV at that point, a lot of the hair bands.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't too into that. So I didn't have much of an interest. So I went over to a buddy's house. Jeff Sorensen is his name, and his brother Chris. And I knew Chris from the wrestling team too. So I was over their house one day, and we played Master of Puppets on a record. Wow. And it was the first two songs, Battery and Master of Puppets. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, I was like, what the hell is this? It changed my life like right away, immediately. And those songs were so cool that I didn't even want to hear the rest of the albums. I didn't want to risk the third or fourth song would be a letdown. But obviously it wasn't.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Metallica, is that correct?
Yeah, that's who brought me to the musical dance, if you will.
Yeah, very cool. So got you into Master of Puppets, great song. And we're gonna start with the beginning of your journey. I wanted to start with the Marine Corps. And what inspired you? What was the inspiration for getting into the Marine Corps? What's that story?
I think it really started at a very young age. One of the first, like with comics and movies, I remember discovering, at a young age, like Conan and Rambo, all these awesome action characters, right? And it just gravitated towards it. I mean, I was 7 years old when I watched Conan, which obviously was not right for a 7-year-old to be watching. But I pulled one over on mom and played a little hooky and watched it. It was just like blown away by the warrior mentality. It just kind of started there at a very young age. And then as I got a little bit older and a bunch of my friends that were a few grades above us were joining the Marine Corps, my hometown was always very well represented with joining the military, especially the Marine Corps. So this individual who I knew really well, Greg Hicks, who's now my brother-in-law, ended up recruiting me right out of high school. I was in boot camp 2 days after high school graduation.
Yeah. All right. So boot camp, and I know you learn a lot of lessons about leadership when you're in the Marine Corps. And I wanted to ask you, like, what are some of like the best leadership lessons you've learned from your time in the Marines?
I'd say number one, you learn how to lead by example, lead from the front. I think that one of the best ways to inspire people to get on board with your mission is for them to see you leading, to see you practicing what you preach.
Yeah.
I also feel that, you have to learn how to motivate each individual and then motivate them together for a common goal. I've always believed, there's that saying, treat others the way you want to be treated. But I think you can take it a step further and treat each individual the way they want to be treated, because motivating people, everyone has a different button to push that
Yeah.
inspires them to be their best.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. So motivating people is obviously a huge thing. And you're not looking at it as like one size fits all. It's how does this person want to be treated? How can I motivate this person? Very cool.
Yeah, the nuances of what inspires people, you know, getting to the core of why they do things.
How did you get to that in the Marines? Like, how would you discover that about someone? What were some ways of doing that?
Just sit down and talk with them. Ask about their families. Ask about their background. Find out why they joined. Find out what it's like, the things they love in life. Just get to know them. I think just spend some time with them, just human to human, you know.
That's awesome, and that's great leadership as well. It's a win-win. That's good. I like it.
Thanks, man.
Perfect. So you obviously have a love for music, right? You said it kicked off when you heard Master of Puppets. You heard the first two songs by Metallica. What do you use that you learned in the Marine Corps that you still use as a musician, as like a frontman?
I guess the best comparison that I can make between the two is a band can function a lot like a Marine Corps fire team. You know, like a Marine Corps fire team, you have 4 people that work together that have different positions in the fire team that all work together seamlessly for a common goal. It's kind of like, you know, you'd have your drummer, your bassist, your guitar player, your vocalist. So getting them all on the same sheet of music, so to speak, is an important thing. And seeing what the clear-cut objective is, and there's a lot of comparisons with the way they work together. So it's just, if it's on a stage or a battlefield, you got 4 individuals coming together for a common goal.
That's awesome, man. That's very cool. I like that. So putting on a music festival, that's very impressive, right? A lot of times people have these ideas of like doing things like that. But when you started the American Warrior Festival, I bet there was a lot of leadership lessons that you learned from that. What did you learn in the Marine Corps that you were able to use in starting your own music festival to help veterans?
Well, I believe off the jump, it's just the belief that you can take on something that large. You know, like I think the Marine Corps really gives you a lot of confidence that you can take on the world, really. You know, you learn a lot of different things. You're tested mentally, physically, emotionally. And so you feel that there's no task too daunting in life. I think it just kind of really gives you a good starting point to launch great things. And the discipline you learn, and the details, you know, the devil's in the details. So you learn all those different things in the military. And one of the coolest things is in the military, it's kind of like a great melting pot. You have people from all around the country, right? You have a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds. And I feel that music is like a universal language that can bring people from all walks of life together as well. Yeah. So I think that is a thing, like the universal language of music. People from different backgrounds, people that love different things. I see a lot of similarities between a military platoon and a bunch of concert goers.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, it is like the universal language. And
yeah. In the Marine Corps, we had people. Now in boot camp, it's basically east of the Mississippi and west of the Mississippi. You go to different boot camps, but you'd have people from the south, the north, people from Texas, and you really learn a lot about culture. Here's a good comparison. In our squad bay, you could walk down the hall and you'd have country music. A lot of the Iowa boys would like country. You'd have a lot of the California Marines, where there's a lot of the electronic or dance music or hip hop, and you had your metalheads. So there's kind of a good comparison.
That's cool. Yeah, like you got the country, all different cultures. Do you have any stories from that time, like when you were first in boot camp, of like learning all that about the different cultures of the United States? Because that seems like that's a very cool place to be.
Yeah, for sure. One of the biggest things was if you were like a small town boy or a city dude, you know, like you just would kind of talk to each other about the differences of growing up, where, you know, some of these guys are from cities of 3 to 5 million people, and you could be from a small town of 10,000.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of the shock between the two cultures and upbringings.
Yeah.
So you can't really, and then actually you get to hang out with these guys, and then you go to their hometowns
Mhm.
and you see how the other half live.
Yeah.
So
Man, that's crazy. That's really cool. That's awesome.
yeah.
There's this, I was doing some research, looking at some of your podcasts for the American Warrior Festival, and a theme that I saw was adapt and overcome. So I want to ask you, what does adapt and overcome mean to you, and how has it been useful on your journey?
Yeah, I tell you what, there is no more important mantra in my life, at least. I think adapt and overcome is like an everyday thing. I think being flexible and malleable in life is vital. I mean, you could plan and plan and plan for days, right? Weeks, years. And then right when you jump off, something could come in and throw a wrench in your plan.
Yeah.
And we see that all the time in life, right? And in the military and any kind of leadership roles or strategy planning. So I think being able to think on your feet, I think being able to adjust on the fly, stay positive, stay motivated, and just find ways to win and complete the objective regardless, I think is one of the greatest life skills that we can develop. I mean, I don't think it's just for the military. I think it's for the civilian world as well. If you adapt well on your feet, I think you're going to be all right in life.
Yeah, definitely. And how were you able to do that during, like, because we had a curveball, right? A black swan event, they call it, with the coronavirus or COVID-19. How were you able to do that during that time? How did your nonprofits do that?
What we did was we just kind of found ways to stay busy. And actually, you mentioned the podcast. That's why we developed that. That's one of the biggest things we did. We didn't have a podcast before that. And I talked with our team and said, well, we got to do something positive while we're kind of down here with our events. So we got into virtual events. We got into the podcast. We started doing things like a food drive. Started just feeding, veterans and people that needed food, and went around collecting food, bringing it to food banks. So we stayed really busy. We just wanted to do something positive. And we also took time to build up our team. One of our greatest team building time frames was during coronavirus.
Yeah.
What else did we do? We did a lot of strategizing, a lot of strategy, a lot of planning. So yeah, we stayed busy for sure.
That's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Wanted to ask you about, we often have people in our lives who've had an inspiration on us. As you think about your journey to who you are today, who is someone who had a big impact in shaping you or helping you to become who you are today?
Oh, well, there's so many, from childhood coaches, teachers, friends, family, so many people that have been a big part of my journey personally. But there's one individual that sticks out here, that stands out with this because of the military connection here. And that's Lieutenant Colonel Terry Hagan, who, without him, I don't know if there would be American Warrior Festival as it is now. Because it's a whole other story of what happened and what I did in the first part of my Marine Corps career. And in fact, in episode 1 of the podcast, I talk about it. There's different videos and stuff that talk about me making some big mistakes as a young Marine, getting out of the Marine Corps in a not so positive fashion, and then fighting to get back in for years. It was a 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 chance, and just a chance meeting with Terry Hagan one night on a New Year's Eve party, led to the machines of reclamation being put into place for me to get back into the Marine Corps. And so Terry Hagan helped me make that happen. Without him, I don't know if I would have had the pull within the ranks of the Marine Corps to make it happen, because they weren't returning my calls. And as soon as he got involved, the machine started happening.
That's awesome, man. That's a really cool story. That belief in a second chance, that can be a huge thing. That's good.
Yeah. In fact, it's part of our program now when we're working with the military. There's a second chance clause that I'm going to take very, very seriously moving forward.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about that clause? I'm interested to know what that clause is.
Yeah, I think in life, second chances are so vital to our society. I think that people sometimes when you make a mistake of that level, if it's a grand mistake that shocks you to your core and it really, really hits you hard, I think that is painful as that can be, or as down in the depths as you can become, I think that energy can come back and push you to levels you never thought were possible in a positive fashion. And it's like the yin and yang type of thing. I think if you redirect that energy that's that strong and you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
I know I was 10 times better of a Marine the second time than I was the first time. And I was 10 years older. My physical scores were better. My mindset was better. I was more experienced in life. And so in the military, a lot of times, if you screw up, that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear anything. And I think personally, with a case-by-case basis, if that person really, really realizes the mistake they made and really wants to right or wrong, I think the military should look at these individuals if they're still of sound mind, body, and physically able to do it. Because when you get a second chance, you can take all of those things that you learned, the fire that you have from missing it, you don't know what you got till it's gone. If you can direct that energy, I think the ranks will be a lot better off for it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push that with as much leverage as I can put together.
I love that second chance clause. What advice would you give someone who made a mistake and they're looking to get that reclamation, looking to get that second chance?
Find out what they did first. I know like the military has RE codes, like re-enlistment code, RE. One being the best, then there's 2, 3, 4. 4 is like, you are done. That's it. That's what I had. I had a 4. A 4 is like the biggest like obstacle that it's not even really waverable. See, for me to do this, it was really all the stars aligned. The Iraq war was happening. They needed more bodies. If it wasn't wartime or they didn't need more Marines, I don't know if this happens without there being a conflict, wartime. So I would find out what they did. Number one, why they want to fix it. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I think your video went away.
Okay, here, let me fix it real quick. I don't know what happened, but I can get back. That's
There
weird.
Just shut off for a second.
Is that okay?
It's all good. Yeah, now I can see you.
Okay, cool. So I find out what they did and why they want to fix it. Yeah. What's their motive? Is it true? Do they have the staying power in the fight to go through all the rejection and keep coming back? I heard no so many times. I got hung up on so many times. I wasn't going to stop till I got there. And that's what I want to see out of them.
That's awesome. That's amazing. It's perseverance, grit. Very important to have that. I've heard in boot camp, never been to boot camp. It helps with that, but it helps in general with life, business, everything. Very cool.
Don't stop. I mean, just keep going. I mean, that's number one, persistence. Yeah.
Very cool. And what advice would you give for a young Marine, someone who's thinking about joining the Marine Corps? What would you tell them?
I would say get as much information about the branch of service that you're looking to join. Find out as much as you can about it. Do your research. And now, like today's day and age, with all the information online, that should be no problem to do. I think that also have a plan as early as you can. Try to line up what you want out of your military career. Try to align it up with your civilian career. Like try to put those things in order where you can take stepping stones in the military that'll set you up for your civilian career after. Even if you're going to do 20 years in the military, you still are going to be most likely young enough to work and do other things. So I would say try to marry those two things together, whatever civilian goals you have with your military goals.
Awesome. Okay. So like kind of link it up in terms of like what you're learning in the Marines to be equipped in civilian life. Does that make sense? Am I hearing correctly?
Exactly. Okay. See what's transferable as far as the skill set.
Okay. Very cool. And awesome. Want to pivot to, let me see if we have any questions here in the chat. All right. Want to pivot to your musician journey. You talked about the first time you heard Metallica's Master of Puppets, Battery, Master of Puppets, like that was like, wow, what is this? This is amazing. Tell me the story about the Ride the Lightning tape.
Oh, well, yeah, we're definitely dating myself now, but it was, it was the tape era, Walkman era. And I remember my mom was going to the store, and like I said, I heard the album Master of Puppets. So I said, "Hey, Mom, when you're at the store, would you grab a tape for me? It's called Master of Puppets by Metallica." And she goes, "Okay," and I kind of showed her a picture of what it looked like, and she kind of looked at it and didn't really say too much. So she comes back, and I said, "Did you get the tape for me?" And she goes, "Well, I got you a tape, but I didn't get the one you wanted." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she goes, "I wasn't going to buy you that Master of Puppets because it had crosses all over it."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, all right." She goes, "So I got you the one with the electric chair on the front." So, so that was a lot better, like the crosses, that was a little risky. With the electric chair with lightning bolts and everything was safe enough. So maybe religion came in there, but came into play there. But it's just a funny story that's how she presented it. I didn't get you the one with the crosses. I got you the one with the electric chair.
The electric chair, a little bit toned down version.
Though is as soon as I put that in, I was like, I have no problems with this one either. It was fire with fire. I couldn't. It blew me away.
That's awesome. And Ride the Lightning, that's Metallica. Is that correct?
Yeah. So she got the band right.
Okay,
So
you got the band, just not the same one. Okay.
She was in the ballpark. She just got a different album.
I want to pivot a little bit because it sounds like Metallica is very important to your journey as a musician. What was it like? Because I saw on social media, I think it was on Twitter, that you had Metallica play the American Warrior Festival. What was that moment like?
Oh, they didn't. We're not at that level yet where we were the promoter or the agent. We did a luxury suite event.
Yeah.
Within the stadium. That was
I see.
Yeah. Now listen, those are goals. Those are goals
dope,
forward. But that was a
Yeah.
Live Nation event that we built our own event within it.
So they had a Metallica concert. You brought some veterans to like a luxury box to watch it.
Yeah, veterans, individual buyers. We had a bunch of people in our luxury suite, and we did it in Vegas, and we're doing it again in Buffalo.
That's awesome. Yeah, just a matter of time. You're gonna have Metallica on there. Okay, but that's cool though.
I believe, man. I believe.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Thank you for that.
So, getting back to guitar, what would you say is the coolest guitar riff of all time?
Oh, that is one of the most loaded questions ever. But there's two that just stick out. I mean, this list could be hundreds of riffs long, even within one song. But I'll narrow it down to two of my favorites at the time and of all time. I would say Black Sabbath's "Lord of This World."
Yeah.
And Pantera's "It Makes Them Disappear." And that's not one of the more popular Pantera tunes, but I don't know if I've ever heard a heavier riff in my life. So those two are two of my favorites. They're both really slow, prodding, dark riffs.
That's awesome. I'll have to check them out. Very cool. All right. And then who's a guitarist that you believe is underrated currently?
There's two players that, I mean, it's kind of hard to call them underrated because they're well-known heavy players, but I still feel that they deserve even a little more due. Two of these guys have been huge inspirations for me. Is Tommy Victor of Prong and Danzig. I just think the riff writing machine. I think the guy just has some of the tightest, grooviest, heaviest riffs, and I think that people could spend some time, especially with Prong. I mean, Danzig's cool too. That's more of Glenn Danzig's thing. Prong is Tommy's, and they just have some really cool stuff. Like Cleansing is a great album. Let's see, there's a bunch of them. I mean, Power the Damager. I mean, and even before that, Beg to Differ. And then I would say Pepper Keenan of COC, Corrosion of Conformity, and Down. I like his playing because he's really versatile. He plays really heavy riffs, but he's also very versatile, like bluesy type stuff. And he's really good with acoustic melodic things. And he's a hell of a singer. So those are two musicians that probably definitely I wouldn't say underrated in metal or heavy music, but in the big scheme of things, I think they are.
Okay. In terms of guitarists in general. Okay. That's awesome. Now I want to ask you about your band Weapon X. How did that start? How did you start the band Weapon X? What's the story behind that?
Well, I always had an idea when I moved out to California, because I had a band called Diesel in New York that I fronted with a good friend of mine. And so I was used to fronting and building bands and kind of moving my own thing forward. Mm-hmm. So when I moved out to Los Angeles, before I went to Iraq with the Marine Corps, I was doing some session work and doing some other things like that, and realized that it really wasn't for me. I didn't like to kind of have to work for another artist. I mean, it wasn't like something that was a bad experience. It was just, I wanted to have my own thing. I was more accustomed to that. So I knew that when I was in Iraq, I was going to start putting the material together and start writing music that was going to eventually become Weapon X stuff. In fact, when I went to Iraq, I didn't really have a band name. I mean, that was something I spent hours thinking about when I was out there. You know, I was playing music and writing tunes. I'm like, what the hell is this going to be called? You know?
Yeah.
And I just came up with a bunch of different names. I didn't like it. And then my buddy was like, how about Weapon X? And because I had a Wolverine Weapon X book.
Yeah.
It's called Weapon X. It was what Wolverine was called before they called him Wolverine, right? Or Logan.
Oh, wow.
And so he goes, you know, you should call it that. You should call it Weapon X. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know what I think about that. But then it kind of started growing on me. And so what we did was we ended up trademarking it.
Oh, wow.
And when we trademarked the name Weapon X, Marvel allowed us to use it as long as we promised not to put any Wolverine stuff on it. Basically, an understanding that we weren't going to try to blend those two things.
Yeah.
Because they could really, I meid they're Marvel. They could have just squashed us like a bug if they wanted. You know?
That's nice of them. Man.
It really was cool. And here we are. Let's think, it's 16 years later.
Wow.
So that's kind of how we came up. So we basically I wrote music out there and came up with the name out there.
So you wrote the music in Iraq, a lot of it.
A lot of it, yeah. Yep. So when I got back in April 2006. I got to work right on it. And we were in the studio within a year, or no, within the year we started recording.
That's awesome. Very cool. And wow, okay. What's the mission? Sounds like you're very mission driven. A lot of things that you do behind the band Weapon X.
Well, we are definitely, I'd say, like an underdog type of band. And we do everything independently. We love the underdog kind of position. I think it's one of hunger and overcoming obstacles. So that's kind of been a theme that we've had. Yeah. Also a huge Rocky fan. So
oh yeah, the ultimate underdog.
Kind of doesn't align with me being a Yankee fan and things like that are empires, but basically we like to express and put an honest our honest emotions in life out into the music. We really like to just kind of write about things that we dig, you know, everything, things that we go through, like a lot of bands, just trying to get the most truest feelings and emotions out, or from life out into the music, just kind of transfer your soul through an instrument and out to the public.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. And it's not, I know you had the inspiration, but how did you find your sound, and did it evolve over time? Like, has your sound changed over time with Weapon X?
Yeah, and another thing too, kind of blending these two questions, we knew that we wanted to also feature as many musicians as we could over time. It also maybe spent time in the military, even though we're not, there's bands out there that are all military veterans. That's all they do. Yeah. And they do it really well. We wanted to have the military themes and sounds, and we wanted to have the veteran influence, but we didn't want to be pinned down to that. We didn't want to be a military band only. So a lot of our songs do have military cadences in that, military drumming, but then we'll switch things up and write tunes about Vikings, or, you know, we did a Raider anthem. So Our sound has always been rooted in the core, guitars, drums, bass, vocal, kind of the traditional rock and roll sense, metal outfit, metal lineup. But we've always wanted to introduce other instruments and get into other things, kind of expand our musical soundscape with different instrumentation. And we're going to start doing that more.
Yeah. What's an instrument that you're excited to look at for that?
That's a phenomenal question. I'd say we want to do two things there.
Yeah.
We want to play around with more electronic sounds.
Yeah.
While also playing around with more world instruments. Like we like battle hymns from around the world. You know, like I love Japanese war drumming. I love I love like drums and cadences of battles. I just think it's cool. Like a lot of movie music too, like a lot of film scoring. We have a guy in the band who does that. So we have a lot of scoring stuff in our music already. We love strings. We love the classical instruments, but I also think there is room for a little bit of electronic music mixed in there. But kind of mixed in there in a way where the traditional metal lineup still is featured. But we're willing to try other things too.
That's awesome. I love it. Very cool. So it's a family show. When I wrote this question, I was looking at it and I was like, this is a family show. What are your favorite stories and experiences as a band?
Dan, I'm glad that that we talked about how family oriented this is. So let's see, because there's a lot of positive stories and a lot of insane stories that would fit in a probably could fit in a Motley Crue video or something, or a documentary. But I would say on the positive side, doing our instrumental POW and doing it in front of a bunch of Vietnam veterans and having them, wave the flag, the POW flag, was very powerful. That was a great moment. Then there's just insane moments like having a disagreement in South Philly with a band linked to biker gangs down there.
Wow.
biker groups, let's say biker group organizations, if you will. And it was probably in our best interest and everyone's best interest for the South Philly police to escort us out of that city, so we could continue on with our tour, and it didn't have to get any crazier than it already was. So when you get escorted out of South Philadelphia, a very rough town, by the South Philly police, it's an interesting evening.
That's crazy. So that's what a way to leave South Philly. That's crazy.
That's not because of that, trust me.
Yeah.
But we haven't been back there. We look forward to going back there without the police escort. We'll see how that goes.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
There's also there's a lot of interesting individuals in our band too. So there's a lot of funny stories that we could always discuss off the air if you'd ever like to do so.
For sure, definitely. And I want to ask you again about leadership. It sounds like to do something what you've done, you have to have good leadership skills. So what did you learn about leadership more specifically as a musician or a front man in a band?
One of the biggest things is no matter what you're doing in art or military, is I think that you have the common vision and the brand and the mission requirements. In music, you have the songs recorded. They exist as already recorded pieces of music. But when you have new musicians coming in, I think it's great to allow the individual musicians to put their own stamp, their own individual personality into the music. I think you want to let them be free and put their soul into it. You don't want to turn them into robots, right? You like want to let them breathe. And so I think letting people be themselves is especially important in art and entertainment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like it. What would you say is the most fun Weapon X song to play, and why?
Probably the ones we don't screw up, but I would say two that I enjoy playing personally. our the first song we ever wrote, These Wounds, and a heavy slow jam called Viking Chug.
Yeah.
I like those two songs. They speak to me in a live sense more than the other. Well, I don't know, more than the others. It's just they really appeal to me playing live.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if people want to check those out, where can they find them? These Wounds and Viking Chuck. Check out your music.
The easiest thing to do would be to go to our website, which is
Yeah.
weaponxband.com.
Yeah.
Whenever anyone's searching for us, it's a good rule of thumb just to put in Weapon X Band.
Yeah.
Put in band too, because Weapon X, you're going to get a lot of, like we said earlier, a lot of Marvel stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. You get a lot of Marvel. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what was the inspiration behind the American Warrior Festival, starting a music festival to help veterans? What was how did that idea come to be, and how did it become a reality?
It really was just the combination of the two most important passions in my life, music and the military, just simply brought them together. Decided to marry those two things together. It was actually encouraged by just a few different people in the music industry, because by then I already had concerts and events going. Mm-hmm. And someone brought up, hey, why don't you do something for your fellow veterans? Why don't you maybe do something that focuses on the military? Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. So we launched the first one in 2012. And the first one was actually called Warrior Fest. Then I realized that there was a religious group out of Oklahoma or something, but they had a picture of a lion and everything. It was like Warrior Fest was their name. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I like American Warrior Festival a lot more anyway.
Yeah.
It led us to adjusting the name and then trademarking the name.
Okay, American Warrior Festival. And that's a strong name, definitely.
Thank you. People call it AWF for short, but it's definitely, I like American Warrior Festival. I think it is strong and right on the nose.
Yeah, very cool. What are some cool stories from, building the American Warrior Festival?
Let's see. I would say all the different people we met, all the different places we get to see. And we have American Warrior Festivals in Rochester, New York City. We're down in DC. We're in Nashville, San Antonio, Austin, Vegas, LA, San Diego, and we're growing into other places too. So I'd say just the people we get to meet, the veterans we get to help through the contributions and donations. We've been a part of organizations that give vehicles away to veterans in need. The co-founder and bassist of Megadeth jumped on one of our shows last minute in San Antonio to give us a big boost.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to have a metal legend jump on our show like that last minute and help us out. That was a good night. Let's see. Also, Raiders versus Giants, when we got to do Raiders versus Giants in Jersey for Salute to Service weekend. And we had some members of the military in there that were able to bring their service dogs in. And a lot of these guys hadn't been to a public event or a public place in months or years, probably years.
Wow.
So it was a way for them to kind of get back out into the community when they had PTSD and things like that they were fighting through. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really the little things, man, that are really huge things, but to these veterans. But it seems like maybe a small thing for us to invite them to an event, even though we know the importance of it. Yeah. But it really can change their life by breaking through some things that are holding them back with being social.
That's huge. Wow. That's very powerful. You said the band was Megadeth that helped out at the last minute?
Yeah, it was their bassist and co-founder, Dave Ellison. He was doing a solo thing in San Antonio, and he helped us out.
Man, that's crazy. That's awesome. And just to be able to see all those people, what was it like to see those people with their service dogs at the Raiders? I know you're a huge Raiders fan, I can see. At the Raiders game, what was that like?
Oh, it was really cool. I mean, first off, the biggest thing with service dogs is they're adorable. So you want to, your first instinct is to go up to them, right? Obviously it's a no. But they enjoy the experience, I think, as well. They got their vest on, they're doing their thing. And the cool thing about service dogs is it's a dog and veteran kind of saving each other's life. It's a lot of these dogs are from rescues, I believe. So
Wow.
It's just really cool to see their eyes light up and be a part of an event of that magnitude. 70,000 people, the military flyovers.
Wow.
All the camaraderie.
That's really cool. That's dope. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Man. How can people help the cause of the American Warrior Festival?
Well, I would say things they could do is, let's see here. They can go on the website, they can spread the word, they can contribute time as a volunteer, they can contribution or just really support one of our events. Most of our events are built in where any financial or any money that's put into what we do, the person can get something for it besides, in addition to their cause, they're helping us with the cause. Besides the good feeling that people have by contributing to something bigger than themselves, they also get to go and attend an event for it. They get to come to a concert. They get to go to a sporting event or something. They're able to enjoy our world with us and see where their hard-earned money is going.
Wow, that's powerful. That's good. That's a really smart way. That's smart business, right? That's a win-win. So they get a fun event, you get donations.
Right. Even at the candy bars, I've had people say, "Oh, where does the money for the candy bars go?" And I'm like, "Well, go ahead and take a bite of that candy bar." And they do, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing." I'm like, "Right now we're even." But it goes above and beyond. This is what we do with candy bars. They help fund events. They help pay for the tickets for the veterans to go to these higher profile events, all these different things. So anytime that we can kind of give the contributor, I always believed in giving more in value than you ask for in payment.
Yeah. I like that. It's a very good philosophy. And again, leadership going to the next level, right? Because now you're organizing huge events. That's a different thing altogether. What did you learn as a leader through owning the American Warrior Festival or starting that nonprofit?
It's let's see here. It's basically just kind of taught me how to be more detail oriented.
Yeah.
How to kind of go from the 30,000 foot view and look at the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
I've always kind of been a doer. I've always went out and grinded and just kind of like run through the wall like the Marine Corps grunt. It's always been that. But now I'm learning how to look at things at a much bigger, bigger light. Just kind of being able to plan and create systems and organization within these larger events. Mapping out how many to do. How many can we take on at once? How do we divvy up our manpower and our resources?
Yeah.
So as you grow things like this, you have to scalability is big, right? You have to realize what you're able to do with the resources you have. How do you move forward?
Yeah.
In a large.
What would you tell someone who was looking to maybe hitting like a ceiling and they're wanting to scale things up, but they're kind of hitting a ceiling somewhere? What advice would you give to that person?
Two things. I would find out where the weakness is and find out if it's something that you can fill that void by developing yourself as an individual, or can you figure that out? I think find out where your biggest holes are. Because I believe if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. I think you need to make that change where you can find the holes in your organization and fill those. Like kind of like the holes in a boat. Your boat can still float. It might be floating slower because there's some holes in it, and you have to get the water out of it. So it's not realizing its full potential. So I think that you have to kind of fill the gaps there. Number two, I believe it's like boiling water. I think that it can get hot and you're about to be on a break. You're about to break through some ceilings. And I think if you can work smarter, work a little harder, put even a little bit more. If you're putting in this amount of effort, take it to the next level. Sacrifice whatever you have to sacrifice to do so. Put those two things together. I think you'll break through those ceilings.
Man, I love it. And I wanted to let you know we have a comment here from Dylan, and it says, I know Dan personally, and he himself has done a great job with us veterans going through hard times, even if it's just a conversation. So I wanted to give you that encouragement. That's awesome to have people out there giving you a shout out.
Yeah, I think I know exactly the man you're talking about. That's another thing. Listen, I know we do all these events, but our phone, our messenger, our email is always open for these guys. If we can help them ourselves, we are definitely going to. And if we need to bring someone else in to help them with a specific need they have, then we have a great veteran network. So our phone is on 24/7 for our fellow veterans.
Awesome. And wanted to ask you on that note, what advice would you give for a veteran who's maybe going through a tough time? What would you tell them?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Number one, get through the next second, get through the next minute, get through the next hour. Call, reach out. Put one foot in front of the other. Don't stop. Don't throw in the towel. Whatever you're going through, there is something out there that's going to help you beat it. I've talked to veterans where music saved their lives. I talked to veterans where the gym saved their lives. I've talked to veterans where a service dog saved their life. There is something. If it's a broken relationship, if it's whatever it is, if it's things you've been a part of that the demons, just keep fighting. Life is beautiful regardless. And if you can get through that next second, that next minute, it could buy you the time to change your life for the good. You could get through it.
All right. I like it.
And reach out to your fellow veterans.
That's awesome. And want to ask you finally, what are the keys to success when it comes to American Warrior Festival and also the work you do with Strength in Numbers? I want to be sure I mentioned that as well. Strength in Numbers, your entertainment company, promotion company. What are your keys to success?
I'd say the keys to success are loving, number one, loving what you do so much. I've always believed in that Steve Jobs comment where he said, pick something you completely love, that is just something you dream of doing, that you would pay money to do. Not just something you could do to make a living, but you just, whatever this is, whatever this passion is, you have to have a want to do it. It's almost like something you need to do. So find the passion. Learn as much as you can about that industry. Be willing to fall on your face. Be willing to fail. Be willing to try new things. I also believe in blazing a trail of your own. You can open up all these books. You could study all these books of people that have been successful before you, because success leaves clues, right? So you can learn all you can about your idols, the people who inspire you. Take all that in like a sponge. Then find ways to write your own book. Blaze your own trail. Instead of just taking the freeway that everyone's taking 80 miles an hour, take a right into the woods with a machete and chop through the brush to get to where you're going. You're going to take a bunch of, it's going to be tough. It's going to be slow going, maybe. It's kind of like venturing into a place that has never been ventured into. You write your own story.
Man, write your own story, blaze your own trail.
That's been our key. And adapt and adjust. Don't be too proud to admit you're wrong. Check your ego at the door. Bring in great people. Listen to those great people.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to give you a chance, of course. I love the work you do with the American Warrior Festival. It's that perfect melding of your passions, right? Music and military. Um, could you promote it? Or is there any place people can go to look it up and support?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
thank you for that. American Warrior is AmericanWarriorFestival.com. You could go to the bottom and all of our social networking icons are there.
Mhm.
Yep, so you'll be able to go and check those out. You can find out everything we have going on. You could also reach out to us if you have any questions. There's also Strength in Numbers, which is strengthinnumbersent.com. And that is also, American Warrior falls under Strength in Numbers. Strength in Numbers is like our parent organization that has different event series. And American Warrior is our biggest one. So that's the way to find it.
Awesome. And wanted to jump into some questions here. We may have to skip some. I want to be respectful of your time, but one here I wanted to ask is getting deeper. If you could go back in time to when you started and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
To be more of a planner, to organize more off the jump. I've always been just kind of there. I want something, boom, just run towards it.
Yeah.
Just go get it. I want this over here, go get it. Now, being a doer is good.
Mm-hmm.
Doer that plans is better. I think sometimes people plan themselves into submission, and I think people just wander aimlessly doing.
Yeah.
So I think if you can plan your vision and your map, and then take the steps to get there. I spent decades just doing, just going. It just was just not realizing. Maybe I didn't know what I didn't know yet. I learned that plan to fail, fail to plan, or fail to plan, plan to fail. Right?
Yeah.
So now I do a lot more planning. I scan the scene a lot and look at it from a higher view.
Yeah.
I would do that if I could go back in time and do more of that.
It's definitely a superpower being a doer. And I know what you talk about, planning yourself into submission, where it's just like you just analyze it so that you don't do anything.
I've seen people do that where, hey, what happened to this idea you had 5 years ago? Oh, I'm still planning it. What about doing it? Just jump in. Yeah. When I say plan, that's a big thing, but it also doesn't mean sometimes you just have to go do things and fail and learn.
Yeah.
And do that with smaller amounts of money. Do it with hundreds and low thousands, 100K, because there's been promoters that have went so big, and if you fail that one time, you could be out of the game forever, or you're going to be in such a hole, it's going to be hard to come up for air.
Wow. Okay. Understood. And wanted to ask you here, what's something that you know that you think a lot of other people in the world do not know?
This was such a great question. I could have went many different ways with this. But I'm going to kind of say this in the most humble yet confident way, is I believe that what we're doing here as a team is one of the most exciting organization ideas and visions that are out there. I just believe in it. I think that we're breaking new ground, and I think that we can do this worldwide. I think we can do this internationally, and that is our goal. That is something we as a team know, but the rest of the world is yet to know.
But they will.
That was such a great question. I had 5 different ways to answer that, but I was like, you know what? I just want people to understand where we're headed.
Wow. That's awesome. And next question here. What's a pivotal moment in your life that has shaped how you see the world today?
That's a powerful one that brings a lot of energy for me. The screwing up my Marine Corps career the first time was a massive lesson. It was just something. I remember that battle of getting back in and being able to go back in and right all my wrongs. Mm-hmm. Be able to go back and serve the way I wanted to serve. So there's that. And then in more recent times is just, relationships I've had recently, where it's just things that hit you so hard as a human being, mistakes owning it, looking in the mirror and saying, that is not the man I want to be, or that is not the person that I want to be remembered as, you know?
Yeah.
So when you take that on the chin and you look in the mirror and you say, I'm not showing up. I'm not, this isn't your character. This isn't respectful. This isn't what I want to put out into the world. It's not the energy I want to put out into the world. I think you can go to really dark places, really painful places. You could wallow in that. That's not going to do you any good. You could feel bad for yourself. You can be a victim if you want to go that route. None of those serve you. So I think I've been learning a lot. I love the saying, turn pain into power.
Oof.
And I think as painful and as dark as things can be,
Yeah.
that's an energy that burns within. And if you can find a way to redirect that energy and put it into positive things, you can only be as strong as you can admit that you're weak, right? So if you could take all that pain and all that energy, all that regret, and you use that fire and it burns hot as hell, and just take it the other way. If you've hurt people, help people 10 times more. And so that's the way I can get up every day and look at myself in the mirror.
Wow.
Knowing that I don't want to make these mistakes as a human being anymore.
Yeah.
What leads up to that? What in my life? It could be anything for people. It could be drinking. It could be drugs. It could be whatever it is. It could just be any type of thing that gets in the way of you being a good individual.
Mm-hmm.
So I think taking a lot of those mistakes and turning them into amazing things is something massive in my life personally.
Wow, that's powerful. And I love turn pain into power. I love that phrase. Very simple, but powerful.
Thank you, man. It's been my savior, honestly, in the past 2 years.
When you think about your legacy, Dan, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think one of passion, strength, and redemption. You know, a guy who a very, like we all have our flaws. I certainly have mine, but I take that seriously. Becoming better, looking, like I said, kind of piggybacking on what we just talked about. I take it serious when I make mistakes, and I want to be known as a guy who is rough around the edges, but means well.
Yeah. All right. I like it. And final question here. I always ask the same question at the end. If you could leave the audience with one final message, what would that be? Or if you could just say one message and everyone had to listen, what would that message be?
I would just say love, give, and forgive. I think that those are three major things that if you can do those three things, you're going to leave the world a better place by your presence.
I like it. Very powerful. Amazing interview. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Dan. So great to have you.
Joe, anytime. My pleasure, man. I appreciate you.
You too. You too. All of Dan's information, right, like for all his websites, for his businesses, Strength in Numbers Entertainment, the American Warrior Festival, Weapon X, is in the description below. If you like content like this, talking to interesting people, inspiring people about what they're doing to make their mark on the world, be sure to like and subscribe so more people can see it and so you can get more videos as they come out. And Dan, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I just want to say thank you for your time, and anyone who checked this out, appreciate your time as well. It's been a great time spending this Sunday with you here, Joe. I'm thankful